Hello everybody. It's 11 and 2 minutes, so we'll start now. Hello and welcome to this first FREVUE webinar. My name is Thomas Mouret. I work for a network of European cities and regions called Polis, located in Brussels in Belgium, and I am in charge of communication for the project FREVUE. Today we'll have our first FREVUE webinar on the theme of technical assessment of electric freight vehicles. So welcome to all of you. We are pleased to see that this webinar raised interest and to have so many people registered. I hope that all people will join soon. Before starting the presentations, I would like to start with a few technical points. So the webinar is recorded, so it will be uploaded on the website afterwards, and you will be able to show the presentations and the webinar later on. And you also have the possibility to ask questions via the chat box on the left-hand side. And all your questions will be taken after the presentations, and the presenters will respond to your questions. So now I will guide you through the webinar program. So we will start with a presentation of the FREVUE project. This will be done by the project coordinator, Tanja Dalle-Muenchmeyer, who worked for Cross River Partnership in the UK. It will be followed by a presentation on the technical assessment of electric vehicles for logistics operation. This presentation will be made by our partner in charge of research topics. It will be done by Terje Tretvik from our partner SINTEF. And then it will be followed by two presentations by local partners. The first one will be by Marie-José Baartmans from the company BREYTNER in Rotterdam, and the second one will be done by our partner Nuno Sardinha from EMEL, which is an agency for mobility in the city of Lisbon. So I will now give the floor to our project coordinator, Tanja. Please, Tanja, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and thank you everyone for joining today. I'm going to try to take over as a presenter so that you can see my little introductory presentation. So while we wait, perhaps, thank you, Thomas, for organizing all of this. This is definitely not the right slide to start my presentation with. So let's try to go back. That doesn't work. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Let's try to get the right slides on here. In the meantime, this is an exciting point in the project in that we now start to actually be able to present the results of all the hard work that all the partners and the research partners have done over the last 4 years. Altogether, it's a 4.5-year project that's being finalized in September this year. So in September 17, we have about 6 months to go and have already covered 4 years. I'm hoping that my presentation will come up now. There we go. I hope everyone can see that now. So the background of the project is really that to a certain extent freight has been the forgotten child when it came to addressing air pollution issues in Europe. There's been a lot of focus on buses rightly so, a lot of focus on passenger cars. There has been, in cities like London, a fair amount of focus on taxis, and again, rightly so, but very limited focus on freight. But we do know the significant contribution of freight in European cities on local air pollution. And we also know that electric freight vehicles can significantly contribute to a reduction in air pollution in European cities. This I have covered by now. So the objectives of the project really are to show that the current generation of fully electric freight vehicles is fully suitable for a lot of urban delivery operations. But given that the very limited amount of data we had on how these vehicles actually do on a daily basis in daily operations, it was difficult to convince operators to buy those vehicles. So the idea of the project was to get a relatively large number of these vehicles on the road in different European cities and to see how they are doing. So we are doing this in 8 European cities. I don't know how well you see them on the screen here. So these are Amsterdam, Lisbon, London, Madrid, Milan, Oslo, Rotterdam, and Stockholm. The idea here being to cover 8 European cities, not only because it's a European project and we need to cover different European areas, but to cover different climates. So from a very cold Stockholm and Oslo in winter to very hot Lisbon and Milan in summer, which clearly has an impact on the battery, on the efficiency of these vehicles. And to thereby really increase the future uptake of these vehicles, and then also to provide evidence for policy intervention. This is the consortium that we have. I'm not going to go into any details here, but just to give you an idea of that, it's a large consortium. We have 32 partners. And we are organized, which works really well in a bit of, it's a bit like mini projects in each of these cities. So we have a public authority in each of the cities that runs what we call the demonstrators in each city. Then we have the logistics partners who actually run the vehicles, who deploy the vehicles on a daily basis. We have vehicle manufacturers that support with their expertise, grid operators, ICT partners, and then our very important research partners, SINTEF is going to present later today. And then we have our coordination and dissemination partners, Hire and Polis, of whom you've heard a bit earlier today. So these are really just examples of the vehicles that we have deployed in the project. At the moment, it's just over 80 vehicles in the project. We get data from a few more. We have the vehicle sizes range from just under 3.5 tons up to 18 tons. They're all fully electric, so we have no range extended vehicles in the project. And what you will see is that the largest number of vehicles is in the smaller vehicle size kind of range, so under 3.5 tons up to 3.5 tons. We have then a number of 7.5 tons. They are the UPS vehicles that you see here in the center. And then we have some very large vehicles, 12 tons and 18 tons. And BREYTNER, who deploy 2 18-ton trucks, they will talk a bit later today again. But the fact that we have only a limited number of the really large vehicles in the project is also a reflection of the market and what is available. So at the moment, it's much easier to get a small, fully electric van or truck rather than the really large ones. We also have logistics models that are affiliated with the project, some that were set up under the project, some before. But we are not really looking at the question of whether consolidation centres, whether urban or construction consolidation centres, whether they work as such and whether there's a business case for them, although that's a very interesting question, but that's covered by other projects. We, in this project, are really looking at how the use of the consolidation center can facilitate the deployment of electric vehicles. Just to give you a quick idea of the output that we are producing, there's 5 key reports, and the first one I highlighted here, the technical suitability one, because that's what SINTEF will present on a bit later. And then we have a report on the economics of EVs for city logistics, so trying to answer the question, can you actually develop a positive business case around these vehicles? Then transport and environmental impacts. Looking at so the impact on local air pollution. So there we have a clear answer for the freight electric vehicles, as there are no local emissions. The question of CO2 is a little bit more complicated, but we see a significant reduction in CO2 emissions. So social and attitudinal impacts, and then policy and governance. So what does all this mean, and does it warrant further policy intervention, and in what case, what policy interventions have we seen that actually work and which ones work less well? And then all this we are translating into hopefully easy to read guidelines and recommendations for our key target groups. In terms of next step, just quickly, we have, I start with the second point first, we have our final event here in London on the 21st of June, and everyone is welcome to join for that, where we will present the results in detail, all the reports that I mentioned earlier, and we will also discuss with our stakeholders what that actually means for them in practice. And the other question is, the other point is our declaration of intent that we are working on, that you might have heard of. This is really to address vehicle suppliers and potential funders, and to give a better indication of interest across Europe, interest in electric vans and trucks. So if you're a vehicle operator, a fleet manager, and you're interested in electric freight vehicles, then we would be very grateful if you could have a look at this and have a chat with us about whether you might want to assign this, and just indicate your interest to vehicle suppliers and potential funders. All the information is available on the FREVUE website, but you're also very welcome to contact us directly to discuss this in detail. So that's it for me, just as a quick introduction to the project. I hope that was helpful. I realize that a number of you are well familiar with the project, so this was more for the others that are less familiar with it. And Toma, I'll let you take over, Terje, and then I'm happy to take any questions later.
Thank you very much, Tanja, for your good presentation and introduction to the project. As Tanja said, we can take your questions your questions. You can simply leave them via the message option on the left-hand side. Now I would like to hand over to Terje, who is part of our research partner SINTEF, and who will do the main presentation on the technical assessment of electric vehicles. Terje, the floor is yours. Excuse me, Terje, can you unmute yourself? We cannot hear you now.
Mute. Oh, let me see.
Yeah, you can go. Sorry.
So I could just carry on?
Yes, please.
Yes. So this is about collection of dynamic vehicle data, which is the first results report to be finished in the FREVUE project work package 3 analysis. So we had 15 operators delivered vehicle data, dynamic vehicle data to the database the management system at SINTEF. But we wanted to make useful analysis. We needed the vehicles to deliver the state of charge parameter continuously for the battery of the vehicles, and that meant we lost 5, and we had 10 operators and 83 vehicles in this in the results in the analysis files. So basically, we had 2 types of data. The static vehicle data was about to define the vehicles with respect to what type, what size of battery, what charging options, operator, payload, and ID was needed, because this was to be matched with the data about the actual operation of the vehicles, which we call the dynamic data, the running of the data. All of these data requirements were decided already in 2014 when we developed the central assessment framework for the project, and which also consisted of the other assessment areas which Tanja mentioned, which is being done by the other 2 research partners, TNO and Imperial College in London. Anyway, so this is a picture of, which shows that we have quite a lot of data, and the data collection started quite early, already in June of 2014. We started to get data from some vehicles. This developed, the number increased during 2015 and carried on through 2016 until mid-September. No, mid-November actually. So this is quite all these trips, they constituted 757,000 kilometers driven. So that's equivalent to 19 times around the circumference of the Earth at the equator. Just to give you a feeling of the numbers. So as I said, we needed the state of charge parameter to make a meaningful analysis. So that 10 operators met this requirement, and this constitutes 89% of the total vehicle miles driven. So this is quite a lot. There was quite a lot of technical challenges in making sense of all this data, because they were basically delivered in very different formats, and we had to do a lot of individual handling and quality control procedures to proceed. And this is to explain a little bit of the complications. You see the 4 operators in red. They are different from the others in the respect that the ones that are not in red, they had data for a whole day, and the ones that are in red, they are more or less trips, because if the state of charge parameter at the end of a trip increased, then that meant that there had been a recharging of the battery, and the vehicle would be the daily data would be split into 2 or more. Maybe I should not spend too much time on this, because I don't think I can explain it properly for you to understand in such a short time. But anyway, to be able to compare the daily performance on equal terms, the 4 operators that were had their daily work split into trips, they were aggregated to whole days. And on that means that these are then on a comparable basis. So you can see, for instance, at bottom line, the average distance driven per day was 53.5 kilometers. And it varied from the 31.5 kilometers in the London UPS vehicles to almost 100 kilometers in Oslo. And similarly, the duration of the driving hours duration per vehicle per day was quite but did not show that much variation. It was from around 7 to up to 9 hours per day. Now, for the next slide, this is just to explain you a little bit how the connection between state of charge of the battery and the kilometers driven for a whole day and night. This example is from Madrid, where you can, if you follow the blue line, that's the state of the charge of the battery, and you can see that it was fully loaded and at 100% state of charge during the night and ready to go in the morning. So if you this when it started in the morning, the first trip was followed by quite a long stop. And the second trip was followed by a slightly longer stop where the battery was recharged, because you can see that the battery state of charge is going up. And then a third stop was followed by a short stop and a fourth trip to the depot for recharging during the evening and night. So this was a typical, this was an example of a vehicle where we had 24-hour data coming into our database system. The next one is another, which shows another extreme case, so to speak, because this is from the Oslo Bring vehicles, which had we had data per second, and every stop during the day was recorded, and the number of trips during a day was quite high, but also in this case we can see, following the blue line, that suddenly the state of charge is going up, and this is during winter time, and they do during lunchtime they stop for recharging at a fast charging station. So this is the case of winter driving in Oslo, where it's quite often necessary to recharge during the day if you are doing a lot of work. And this was driving 140 kilometers, you can see, and this during cold climate you needed to recharge. Tanja also mentioned that the type of vehicles that we had, where we had the small vehicle class, which were basically Oslo Bring and Madrid. And then we had the medium-sized vehicles, where in fact London UPS had quite a large number of vehicles, so 43 altogether, and in addition UPS Rotterdam and the TNT company operating Amsterdam and Rotterdam. And then finally the large vehicle group, they were some of these were newcomers to the project during the last year, so we were lucky to have quite a lot of data then coming in from the large vehicle group, and basically Rotterdam, Amsterdam, that's where these vehicles were operating. So like I said, all results here are just presented by weight groups of vehicles, and you can also, if you study carefully the x-axis in this slide, you see that there is no vehicles between 7.5 tons and 12 tons, because we have no vehicles in that group. But I mean, this is the usual thing you expect to see, that the kilometers driven per each kilowatt hour of energy spent is longer for the smaller and light vehicles compared to the big ones. So this is as expected. It's also interesting if you look on the vehicles aggregated by, where all vehicles are aggregated by whole days. we can compute the energy usage in kilowatt hours per day. And you see there is not much difference between the small and the medium size, but the larger vehicles, of course, doing a lot of heavy work, they spend much more energy per day. And if you like to compute on this one, you assume 5 working days for a whole year, this amounts to quite a lot of kilowatt hours spent. Actually, the number comes out to is 4 times the average household consumption of electricity in the United Kingdom, or equivalent to 5 times the average annual household consumption of electricity in the Netherlands. So this has some bearings on what would happen if we had a large rollout of electric freight vehicles in cities. And I think this one will be answered quite shortly by the next deliverable coming out from TNO, which looks on this issue, among other things. Yeah, another thing is that we collected on a systematic way 4 different climate parameters. This was, in fact, local data collected by Norwegian Weather Service covering the whole world. And twice an hour we got these weather parameters coming into our system. And we were also able to attribute all these weather parameters according to what time during the day this vehicle was operating. So this is first the average temperature, which is proves the obvious that Madrid is a special case with respect to a higher temperature all through the year, except during December and January, where they are quite on equal terms with respect to temperature. These 4 cities are selected just to represent Northern Europe, Mid-Europe, and Southern Europe. So this was the example of the temperature parameter. We also have the average humidity, which is shows that Madrid has had a more extreme variation in precipitation with quite heavy downpours. No, sorry, this is the average humidity, yeah, which shows that Madrid has a much higher, less humid humidity. But in addition, we had precipitation and wind also collected, but I don't show them here. Anyway, these climate parameters give us the opportunity to examine a couple of hypotheses or other research evidence on the efficiency of vehicles as a function of temperature. And it's well known from the literature that the ordinary small passenger electric vehicles have a sort of optimum temperature range where they are most efficient. And this is the blue. If you look at the blue line on the top there, you see the same, that at the average temperature around 10 to 15 degrees, these small freight vehicles are the most efficient, and it decreases when it gets hotter and also when it gets colder. Some people might wonder why is it not the case for the medium-sized and the heavier vehicles. And I think the explanation has a lot to do with the number of observations we have. You know, remember that the medium-sized vehicles, they all came from mid-Europe, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, London, where there is not so extreme variations in temperature, as well as the large-sized vehicles. They all came from Amsterdam and Rotterdam. So we have very few observations actually then for the temperature ranges above 20 degrees. So we need some more observations to see if this really is true for the large vehicles. maybe the operators coming after me, they presenting after me, have some evidence to provide to us about this. I don't know. This is something we did for the UPS vehicles, because they had data that was very nice to analyze with respect to state of charge of the battery at the end of each day. And this depending on time of the year, month of the year. And because it's obviously a fact that you expect to have a lower efficiency when it's very cold than when it's summer. And you can see that, especially if you look at the UPS Rotterdam line, they take much more energy out of the battery during average working day in like January compared to July. You see that the average charge at end of day during January is less than 50% and 61% in summer. But I mean, it's also an observation that all these vehicles, they have. It's very seldom that they spend so much energy during the day that they are close to zero. It's a lot of extra capacity in general. Now I'm getting closer to close to my end. I don't know how much time I've spent. Maybe I'm talking too fast. Anyway, this is another issue. Is there an optimal speed range when it comes to being efficient? Which the efficiency measure here is kilometer driven per kilowatt hour. And then you see again that there is seems to be an optimal speed range for the light vehicles. Small vehicles, they have an optimal speed range of around 30 to 35. But again, this the medium and large size trucks did not seem to be so much affected by the actual speed which we have recorded from the data they delivered. Anyway, now I'm getting close to the end, and the main conclusion, of course, from this work is that the electric vehicles that was demonstrated in FREVUE are all technically suitable for logistics operations. And we note that some of the small and medium-sized vehicles, they have limited range and in fact may need fast charging during a working day. And this is especially true during cold climate, winter climate. Most of the large vehicles, big vehicles we had in our data, they seem to have excess battery capacity for the logistics operation they were currently performing. But looking at the future, and especially for small vehicles, the building of inner city fast charging infrastructure and new and more modern battery packs with high capacity will further remove barriers for the operation of electric freight vehicles in cities. So this was my presentation. I guess Marie-José can now start uploading her presentation. Thank you, and I expect I will answer some questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Terje, for this presentation. I will now hand over to Marie-José Baartmans. She will give a presentation about a specific case, the case of BREYTNER Transport in Rotterdam, and she will explain how their vehicles there are reacting. So I leave you now, Marie-José.
Thank you, Thomas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marie-José Baartmans. I am owner of BREYTNER. BREYTNER is a core business zero-emission transport company, which is based in Rotterdam. As you can see it here at the picture. Welcome in Rotterdam. BREYTNER operates electric heavy-duty vehicles, especially 19 tons distribution trucks. The trucks are based upon a MAN TGM platform, and they have been manufactured by a Dutch company called EMEL. The trucks all have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, and as Terje just explained, that for the current logistical operation, it is not always necessary, but to give an explanation why we do this, it is basically for flexibility. We see an increase from customers, and we would like to be flexible within the fleet of our trucks. So that's why we have chosen for one of the highest possible battery packs on the trucks, even though we do not always need it. Our trucks are electrical heated, so they are completely zero emission, and they charge only overnight. Before making the investment decision, we have researched, well, all around the world, basically, to find manufacturers for these type of trucks. And there were in 2015, and still are not, any OEMs that manufacture these kinds of 19 tons full electric trucks. So conversion is at the moment the only option. And choosing conversion leads to a number of things, in our opinion. Due to the small numbers of trucks that are converted, we have to deal with high investments on these trucks. Also, the position of the conversion companies towards component suppliers is therefore minor, and then you have to think about price, warranty, service, and availability of components. A very important factor is also the conversion itself. It's the interface or the communication between the platform and the new electric driveline. It needs a lot of reverse engineering, which makes it very complicated. So we definitely follow the OEMs with their new developments and look forward to it. And we see this as a transitional phase, which is good for BREYTNER, because we want to be a company that is a front-runner company, and conversion for the moment is the best possible option. So let's get into a little bit more details of our trucks. Consumption is key factor in getting that best performance out of your vehicles, but also, of course, then out of your investment. And what we have noticed is that the influence of our drivers is much higher than what we see at conventional vehicles. So training, extensive training is highly recommended to get the best performance out of your truck. And we have been able to test the same daily route between a number of our drivers, and we see differences that between drivers that can it differs up to 20% of battery capacity at the end of the day. Same daily route, so that shows how important it is to train the drivers. And I think that's also interesting for Terje's research, as one of the things he just mentioned. Terje also talked about the seasonal influence on our performance. Well, as you know, we are based in Rotterdam, and we have a very mild winter climate. Night temperatures are very reasonable. I think -7 was the coldest night this winter, and well, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, not anything more. And we have experienced no negative impact on the batteries whatsoever, so that is very positive. We could have the same capacity, same range. We did experience some problems, however, with the heating system. In general, the heating itself that is experienced by the drivers as less intense than heating that comes out of a conventional truck. So it's something that they have to get used to, try to find the right settings, and in the end it worked out well. But it definitely took us a while to get that better. The heating itself uses about 4% of the battery capacity. But so far I'm quite positive about the performance during winter. Then, downtime. Since we started, we definitely did experience some downtime. In the beginning, it was probably basically what we call teething problems, teething troubles, and definitely learning by doing, a trial and error. So what we have learned is that it's very important to make a quick diagnosis in case there is a problem, and we try to do this as much as possible through remote monitoring of the trucks. We monitor the trucks through a Viri City monitoring system, but we also monitor the charging through the charging stations. We have access to the charging stations. And in that way we can see is it a charging related problem or a driving related problem, and we can act on that. And then we have a very strict protocol for our drivers to follow each morning and in the end of the day when they start charging again. But one of the things is that they have to use the same charging cable with the same truck every day, and in that way we can follow the performance of the cable as well. Also interesting is that components that are on the truck are updated on a regular basis, so you need to plan time for these updates, and what we also consider that downtime because we cannot deploy the truck. A focus for us at the moment is the development of monitoring tools for preventive actions, and now we have to act once something happens, but we want to be able to prevent instead of problem solving. And there are some companies working on that, so we are following that, and we'll take that to the next step whenever possible. At the moment, truck performance is really stable, and we experience almost no downtime at all. So that is very positive. For the future, we are expanding our fleet. Actually, this week or next week, after the weekend, we are planning to launch with 2 new trucks based on our Mercedes-Benz platform, also manufactured by EMEL, and we are definitely following the OEM development. Mercedes-Benz with the urban e-truck, MEN, VDL, Dutch company, is also moving quite fast, probably going to introduce something next year. And DAF is also thinking about introducing something, and we believe that that could make the transition for the heavy-duty vehicles easier, and then you'll see the numbers increasing probably very fast. So this is it from our side for the moment. Thank you for your attention. Please feel free to ask me any questions at the question and answer part of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie-José. As we are running a bit late, I will now ask Nuno to start his presentation. So Nuno is our partner from Lisbon, from the agency called EMEL, and he will also present a specific case of the electric vehicles in Lisbon. Nuno, you can start.
Good morning, everyone. Just to upload the presentation. So good morning, everyone.
Yes, please, Nuno, go on.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nuno. I'm the project manager at EMEL, the Lisbon Parking and Mobility Company, and also local coordinator from FREVUE project. EMEL is I'm going to start to present EMEL. We are the Lisbon and Mobility and Parking Company from the City Council. We are 100% owned by the city. Our activity is regulated by the City Council of Lisbon. We have to manage all the on-street parking and enforcement. We have more than 50,000 parking spaces and 2,000 parking meters to manage all over the city, and also issue warnings and fines and clapping and towing cars. We also have 21 parking lots with 4,000 parking spaces. Parking right solutions. We have to manage the access control for historical neighborhoods in Lisbon. And we also are working in another mobility solutions like electric bike sharing scheme that we're going to launch in the next summer of this year. Start talking about electric vehicles. We started our path in electric mobility in 2011. We start with one vehicle. At this moment, we have 69 vehicles in total our fleet, with 70 e-scooters. 30% of all these fleet are with alternative fuel vehicles. 12 electric vehicles, for electric vehicles for corporate use, and also 5 hybrids and plug-in cars. At this moment, our fleet is 30% alternative. Our operational fleet mainly during the day has an average travel distance more or less of 50 kilometers per day, and these areas of operational are related with the parking meters maintenance, the parking meters money collection, and parking lots maintenance. We have at this moment 15 electric vehicles allocated to these maintenance areas. We started in 2013 with 5, and at this moment we have 15 electric vehicles for this maintenance. Our fleet is Renault Kangoo, is our electric vehicle for these used for these areas of maintenance and operational, and represent more or less 20% of this operational fleet. With the FREVUE project, we have the opportunity to make a monitorization and comparison of vehicles, and we decide to, even for when we decide to buy electric vehicles, we have to go to the board of directors and explain why we want electric vehicles, and that's why we decide to make a comparison between an electric vehicle and a diesel vehicle with the same kind of operations during the 2015. We decide to choose 2 kinds of operations: the parking meters maintenance and the money collection. And we during 3 months we collect data, and as you can see the numbers, DA is related with the parking meters maintenance, and the B is related with the money collection. And we decide we collect this data, and at the end we can say that we have these numbers, and for us was not we don't have any kind of no change in operation. We don't. For us, was the electric vehicle was a good option to make this kind of operations, and even with the total cost of ownership, at the end we can say that for kilometer the total cost of ownership is the same between the vehicle of diesel and the electric vehicle. I have these numbers. You can see we have, for example, in the charge, the energy cost is less with the electric vehicle. The maintenance is less with the electric vehicle. So at the end, the value is very similar. So by kilometer, the difference is for us is 0. So with this data, we can say that for us, EMEL, we don't have any kind of change in operation due to the use of electric vehicles. Is the same. No changes in the mobility patterns, distance, speed. We don't have any kind of limitation in use of electric vehicles. In our case, the drivers are very satisfied with the experience of driving an electric vehicle. Less noise, less vibration, more comfort. And like we see in the last slide, the TCO is similar between the electric vehicle and the diesel. So this experience in the electric vehicle was proven that is feasible for the EMEL operation, and give us the confidence to keep this policy of the renewal fleet with the electric vehicles. So after this monitoring, we purchase 6 more kangaroos. During this year, we're going to replace 6 more diesel vehicles with electric vehicles. Is going to be financed by another European project. Is Sharing Cities, is a smart cities project from European Commission. And even for the enforcement operations, we use scooters, and now we are starting to use electric scooters for these activities in Lisbon, because we have some areas that is necessary to go by scooter, and we decide to even these scooters are renewal with electric scooters. Is a new process, and we're starting now just for 4 months. We are now start collecting data to see if we can keep also this renewal by the electric scooters to electric scooters. So thank you, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Yeah, talking about questions, 2 questions just arrived for you. I think we can start with questions addressed to you. The first one is about, the last one is about, did you say that you are using electric scooters for logistics?
No, the electric scooters are used for enforcement operations, from our enforcement officers.
Okay. And the second question...
Some, for example, they need to go to a part of the city, more distance for the city center, when we have parking spaces, and they go by scooter. So it's like, but they don't make any kind of logistic operation.
And the second question is about your slide where you show that you have 5,000 euros per vehicle for charging station in TCO. Could you say more about that?
I know, Robert Susi. The charging station is the price of a charging station, so we decide to include in the TCO.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have only a few minutes for questions and answers. During the webinar, I saw that there were a lot of questions, but also a lot of answers by our partners. So thank you for the very interactive question and answer game. There were a lot of questions and comments about the opportunity charging for vehicles during the day. Maybe that Tanja or Terje or any of the speaker want to say a word about it. Because apparently, yeah, in the presentation of Terje, we saw that some vehicles are using opportunity charging during the day, and I think that it happens in particular in Oslo. Maybe we could have some more details about that.
Yes, I think also it was answered by my colleague Isabel, but it's true that in Oslo there are 2 dedicated fast charging stations, part financed by FREVUE, for fast charging of the freight electric vehicles at the lunchtime. So this is out in the city close to where they are operating. They have the opportunity to book and do recharging during the working day.
Okay, and what about the booking system? Is it public for everybody or only for the companies?
I'm not quite 100% into the details, but it's a special arrangement for, during the trial period for the Bring vehicles to get the priority. Otherwise, I think it's freely available.
Okay, thank you. And maybe a last question before we close this webinar, maybe for Tanja. There is a question: was FREVUE acquisition funding going to EMEL only, or EMEL plus CTT, or it's maybe more for Nuno also?
I can answer. The funding was for my presentation was not from Lisbon, it was from EMEL. In Lisbon we have EMEL partner, the Lisbon municipality also partner, and CTT, they are the postal service. In our case was we have funding for electric vehicles for EMEL and for CTT.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I think we are approaching the end of this webinar. All questions I think have been answered in the comment box, so I think you already have your questions. In case your answers, in case you have more questions, please feel free to contact the speakers. You can find their email addresses in the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint will be available on our website as well as the record of the webinar, and you can find more information on our website www.frevue.eu. I would like to thank all 3 presenters for their very good presentations, and I would like also to thank you all participants for their attendance. I wish you all a good day and a good weekend. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Tuma. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.